BBC's anchor Katie Kay was speaking to Dr. Ron Paul about homeschooling. He had some interesting ideas about it. Let's listen in.
I want people to be able to homeschool their children. Not everybody. This is designed to pick out the leaders who want to, and maybe 20% might be interested in doing this. But they would at least see these would be leaders who then would be talking about running for Congress and understand why the Federal Reserve is a...
Yeah, I'm not sure that if you're homeschooling the kids that you're really going to teach them a lot about the Federal Reserve. Now, that was Ron Paul, obviously, on MSNBC. Let's find out more interesting ideas he has on homeschooling.
So the education would be quite different. It would be something where young people would learn at their own pace. They would pick, and they would do it over the internet. It wouldn't cost as much, but they're going to be taught different economics. They would have a different perspective on history. I'd like to show that some of our presidents, the only great presidents, have been the warmongers. And maybe the people who argued for negotiations might be a better president. So it'll be a different approach.
Yeah, well, that would be a different approach if we taught history that most of our great presidents were warmongers. Look, there's some truth to that. Okay, it would be different. I'm positive that Ron Paul's school would be different than any regular public school. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. Well, kids, we start in first grade with the Federal Reserve. Then we move on to our warmonger presidents. Okay, it's different. There's some elements of truth to it, but I'm not sure I'd go in that direction. One more here before we get to the essence of this.
If you want to get to 20% of children being homeschooled, that's going to mean a vast drop in the number of women in the workforce, because it is largely women who are doing the homeschooling. A lot of women can't afford to give up their jobs to homeschool their children. A lot of families can't afford that. And do we actually want to be encouraging women not to take part in the workforce, because we know how valuable that diversity is?
Of course, those are the problems created by what I'm trying to correct, because they have to be in the workforce and they have to work and not take care of kids because of the system that we have, because it's survival.
So that's Katie Kay that I told you about in the beginning, asking all these questions. And there she asked about, well, how in the world are people going to be able to afford this? And Ron Paul says, don't worry. If we homeschool them about the Federal Reserve and all the other ideas that I have, well, the economy would do so much better that women could go back to their traditional roles, the roles that they obviously want, which is to stay at home and teach the kids. I'm not sure I would have gone with that assumption. But hey, listen, even if you give him the benefit of the doubt and you say, look, he was just saying that we can go back to having families have just one earners, which would be lovely. And I would love to see how Ron Paul's magical homeschooling does that. There is another issue here. How about the real world, Dr. Paul, in which a lot of people don't have the time to do this? In fact, when he was asked about it, he said, yes, a woman can work 2 jobs and live in a shelter and still have time to homeschool their kids. On which planet? Are you serious? Can you imagine? You live in a shelter and you're working 2 jobs, and Dr. Ron Paul wants you to come home, apparently not sleep at all, and teach your kids physics and the Federal Reserve. That's the thing with Ron Paul. Sometimes he makes a lot of sense, and other times he seems like he lives on a different planet. It's not the reality we have here. But Ron Paul doesn't want to acknowledge that. In fact, he wants to teach something completely else at home. But if you stayed at home all day, you might come out thinking things like Ron Paul does too. Get out in the real world and find out how things are a little bit different than that extreme libertarian ideology.